Hi loves, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about what aging teaches us about approval, peace, and self-acceptance. And let me start by saying this clearly. This isn't advice, this isn't instruction, this isn't about me telling you what to do with your life. This is simply reflection. You don't need to change anything, you don't need to take notes, and you don't need to agree with everything I say. Aging has a way of changing what matters. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly over time. It doesn't arrive as a big realization. It arrives as small shifts. Things that used to feel urgent slowly lose their grip. Things you once tolerated started to feel heavy. Things you ignored begin asking for your attention. And at first, you might not even notice it's happening. We often think aging is about time passing, but it's really about clarity accumulating. You don't wake up one day wiser. You wake up one day less willing to live in ways that drain you. And that's where this reflection begins. When we're younger, we spend a lot of energy trying to be accepted, trying to be liked, trying to be understood. Approval feels like safety, like confirmation that we're doing life correctly. And when approval is missing, it can be painful, confusing, even personal. Because early on, many of us learn, consciously or not, that love can feel conditional. That praise comes when you behave a certain way. That support shows up when your choices make sense to others. That belonging often requires adjustment. So you learn to watch yourself. You learn what gets you rewarded. You learn what gets you ignored. You learn what gets criticized. And slowly you begin shaping yourself around that. Not because you're weak, but because connection matters. And when you're young, approval often feels like survival. Over time, this turns into performance. You perform happiness, you perform strength, you perform gratitude, you perform being okay. You learn how to say, "I'm fine," even when something inside you is quietly asking for air. You smile when you're overwhelmed. You minimize when you're hurting. You stay agreeable to avoid conflict. And performing works for a while. It helps you fit in. It helps you keep the peace. It helps you stay connected. But performing is exhausting. Most people aren't tired because they're lazy. They're tired because they've been living for an audience. And the longer you perform, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. Aging begins to change this, not because people disappear, but because their opinions start to carry less weight. You begin to notice how little time you actually have, how precious your energy is, how costly it is to keep living out of alignment with yourself. And slowly, alignment starts to matter more than approval. Approval feels good for a moment. Alignment feels steady. Approval is external. Alignment is internal. Approval changes depending on who's watching. Alignment stays the same even when no one is looking. You start asking yourself different questions. Not, do they like this version of me? But can I live with this version of myself? And that question changes everything. One of the hardest lessons aging teaches is this: not everyone will celebrate your growth. Some people only know how to love the version of you that benefits them, the version that stays small, the version that stays familiar, the version that doesn't challenge their worldview. When you change, when you evolve, when you choose yourself, it can make other people uncomfortable. And instead of saying, "I'm struggling with your change," they may criticize, dismiss, withdraw support. This hurts, especially when it comes from people you love. But aging teaches us something important. Lack of support is information, not about your worth, but about their capacity. And not everyone has the capacity to grow with you. There comes a moment when you stop trying to be understood by everyone. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about being honest. You stop over-explaining. You stop defending your choices. You stop shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You realize that peace requires self-betrayal isn't peace at all. Aging doesn't make you colder. It makes you clearer. You learn when to speak and when to remain silent. You learn that silence is not weakness, it's discernment. Not everything needs a response. Not everyone needs access. This is a quiet confidence that comes with aging. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It comes from knowing who you are, even when no one claps. It comes from choosing rest over reaction, truth over performance, presence over proving. You stop racing time. You stop chasing timelines that were never yours. You begin to trust yourself, your own rhythm. You understand that moving slowly is not falling behind. Aging also teaches you that struggling is not a competition. Everyone struggles differently, quietly, in ways that aren't always visible. Comparison dissolves when compassion deepens. You stop measuring your life against someone else's effort, someone else's workload, someone else's sacrifices. You realize suffering doesn't need to be justified to be real. Your pain doesn't need permission, and neither does your healing. One of the greatest freedoms of aging is self-permission. Permission to rest, permission to change your mind, permission to grow slowly, permission to want what you want without apology. You stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start asking, "Is this true for me?" That shift changes everything. Aging is not becoming less. It's becoming less available for what drains you, less interested in noise, less interested in comparison, less interested in being everything to everyone, and more interested in peace, more interested in honesty, more interested in living from the inside out. You don't age into your relevance. You age into truth. You don't owe your life to anyone's expectations. You don't owe constant access to your energy. You don't owe explanations for your evolution. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to choose differently. You are allowed to grow quietly. Aging isn't something to fear. It's something to grow into. And maybe that's what peace really is. Not proving, not correcting, and not explaining every misunderstanding. Just knowing who you are and letting that be enough. Clarity comes when you stop living in other people's minds and start living in your own. And if any of this aligns with you and you enjoy the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me today.